Hook. What if the Mariners actually did the unthinkable and called up a redemptive ending for a beloved lefty who's been out of the spotlight for years? Today we're unpacking James Paxton's WBC showcase, the Mariners' rotation hole, and whether Big Maple deserves one last ride in Seattle. I'm your host, and today we're breaking down not just the facts, but why this story matters for prospect depth, fan nostalgia, and the unpredictable clock of a pitcher's career. Personally, I think Paxton's return could symbolize more than a bullpen hire. It could reveal how teams treat veteran pivots when the timing aligns with a narrative fans crave. What makes this really interesting is the tension between short-term needs and long-shot comebacks, and how that tension plays out across front offices in 2026. The setup is simple. Bryce Miller's inflammation sidelined him to start the season, creating a rotation gap that Emerson Hancock and Cooper Criswell are trying to fill. From my perspective, that gap isn't just about one starter, it's about whether Seattle believes in internal depth or will chase a splashy veteran for a couple of months of innings. One thing that immediately stands out is how the team's internal options, like Hancock, represent a young cohort with upside but limited big league track record. This raises a deeper question. In a sport where injuries are expected, should clubs lean on youth or risk a short-term veteran who can bridge the early season while the kids mature? Now let's talk about Paxton's WBC performance. He's clearly not retired in the eyes of this tournament, delivering multi-inning relief with velo readings, his fastball flirting with 96.5 miles per hour and a repertoire that includes a sinker, cutter, and a nasty curve. What many people don't realize is that this isn't a typical spring cameo. Paxton is being stretched out, pitching in high-leverage spots that test durability after a 2021 to 2024 injury saga. If you take a step back and think about it, this is a live audition. Can a 37-year-old with a history of UCL injuries still handle mid-rotation workload in MLB after years away from the grind? From my vantage, Paxton's performance here isn't about Canada's path in the World Baseball Classic. It's about Seattle reimagining its rotation with a known quantity who carries cultural warmth with the fanbase. A detail I find fascinating is how Paxton's no-hitter moment in Seattle lore still colors the narrative of a potential return. What this really suggests is that teams aren't just chasing measurables, they're weighing storylines, locker room presence, and the emotional resonance that a player like Paxton brings to a young pitching staff. So, does Seattle actually kick the tires? Here's the angle I'd push if I were scripting the next chapter. First, assess the practical fit. Can Paxton handle a patch role as a spot starter or long reliever this season without exhausting the bullpen arms or setting misaligned expectations for the kids ready to break through? In my opinion, the best-case scenario is short-term depth, not a longer commitment that would block Hancock's or Criswell's growth paths. What this matters for is roster flexibility in a season where innings are precious and every extra start can shift the team's developmental timeline. Second, consider the cultural impact. Paxton's return would be a celebration of a homegrown success story. What this really suggests is that fan engagement and local lore can influence front office decisions, especially in markets where the relationship between club and community is its own form of currency. This is not merely nostalgia, it's a potential lever for a clubhouse culture that values resilience and continuity. Third, weigh the risks and rewards. Paxton's track record post-injury has been spotty for durability, yet he demonstrated the velocity and command in a high-stakes environment. From my perspective, a controlled, clearly limited engagement could test the waters without derailing Seattle's longer-term plans. The key is setting boundaries. How many innings, what role, and what happens if the kid pitchers seize the opportunity in spring? Deeper insight. This isn't just about one pitcher, it's about how MLB teams balance veteran reclamation projects with a deliberate rebuild. The Paxton possibility is a microcosm of a broader trend. Players with strong organizational fit and personal histories can become strategic assets in ways that go beyond stats. If Paxton succeeds, it could reinforce a blueprint for similar reunions in other clubs where the emotional and developmental value of a reunion aligns with tangible on-field performance. Closing thought. The Mariner faithful loves a comeback story, and Paxton's legend gives this discussion gravity. If his willing and Seattle's doctors give the thumbs up, I'd cheer for a short, well-managed cameo that honors the past while protecting the present. The question I'm leaving you with, Would you want to see Paxton back in a Mariners uniform for a handful of starts if it means accelerating the growth of the next wave of pitchers? Share your take in the comments, and tell me which path you'd choose for Seattle's rotation in 2026.